so much so that he can fight with all divine forces. That's why we say that Jewish people are higher than the Mazal. We are higher than all the angels. We only have one above us, God Himself. Everyone else is below us. The soul of a Jew emanates from the throne of glory, which means it's the closest thing to God Himself. Just like we know that God breathed into a human being part of Himself, a divine soul, that means we, the Jewish people, possess it. The nations of the world have a soul also, which is a level lower. The Jewish people's souls come from the throne of glory. That means the connection between God Himself and the next lower world. And that is represented in the name Yisrael. You are the one who can overcome all spiritual forces and connect to God Himself. And that's another meaning of the name Yisrael, which is Yashar El. You can go straight to God. By overcoming both physical enemies and all the spiritual enemies, we connect straight to Hashem. Now, this was not a change of name yet. Hashem will change Yaakov's name. This was just a prediction, an acknowledgement that Yaakov deserves it. The angel of Esav himself said, yes, you deserve the name Yisrael because you are greater than all humans and all angels. So Yaakov said, what's your name? And he said, why are you asking? And he blessed him. Now comes the blessing, which means until now it was just a prediction. And the angel said, I can't tell you my name, because our sages say an angel only has a name while he is fulfilling God's command. Once he is finished, he doesn't have a name anymore, because the word malach, an angel, means messenger. The mission is the name of the angel. The angel doesn't have his own name. For example, Hashem wants wind to blow. He wants masses of air to move. So he sends an angel. He sends a force, a messenger, to make that happen. So we see it as wind blowing. We call it a wind. Wind means the name of an angel that is fulfilling God's command. We have an angel called gravity. It's a force in the physical world that God appointed, that God sent. It's a God's messenger to fulfill certain purpose. So happens that it's a constant force. It's an angel that is constantly there. We call it gravity, and it's constantly fulfilling God's command. And so we have all the events that happen in the physical world. What really is happening is that God is controlling everything. He is sending His messengers constantly, and they are fulfilling His will. So the angel said, I don't have a name. My name is my mission. And he blessed him. Doesn't say what the blessing was. Now comes the first negative commandment for the Jewish people in the entire Torah. First, the prohibition of eating the sciatic nerve of animals. Verse 31. So Yaakov called the name of the place Peniel, for I have seen the divine face to face, yet my life was spared. The word Peniel, panim, means face, and the ending is God's name. The sun rose for him as he passed Penuel, and he was limping on his hip. Yes, he was limping as the sun rose, but as soon as the sun rose, the rays of sun healed Yaakov and he became healthy. Verse 33, therefore the children of Israel are not to eat the displaced sinew. Now this sciatic nerve has a name in Hebrew, Gid Hanasheh. Why? Because Hanasheh means the one that jumped, the one that was displaced. Since it happened once with our forefather, this sciatic nerve now is always called by that name. So the children of Israel are not to eat the displaced sinew on the hip socket to this day, because the angel struck Yaakov's hip socket on the displaced sinew. Now we go to chapter 33, the encounter with Esav. Yaakov raised his eyes and saw, behold, Esav was coming with 400 men. So he divided the children among Leah, Rachel, and the two handmaids. Apparently, he changed his mind and he brought the camp together. Could be that God reassured him that everything's going to be fine. So he now greets Esav with all his wives and children. First, the handmaids, the Bilhah and Zilpah and their children, then Leah and her children, and then Rachel and Yosef. And then he himself went ahead and bowed towards the earth 7 times. As he was walking towards Esav, he bowed down to the ground. He got up, walked another few steps, bowed down to the ground, slowly breaking Esav's hatred and his defense, until he reached his brother. This is a hint that he got to his essence. He got to brotherly love through his behavior. So Esav couldn't contain himself anymore. So he ran toward Yaakov, embraced him, fell upon his neck, and kissed him, and they both wept. They cried together. And here, if you look on the Hebrew side, we have interesting phenomena. We have dots, little circles on top of every letter in the word Vayishlach, and he kissed him. And the sages say that it could mean 2 things. Either it means that Esav, who is such a macho, he's so strong, he became like a little lamb. He broke down and he cried brotherly tears of love. And the second meaning is that perhaps Esav still had some hatred towards Yaakov, and Esav tried to bite Yaakov on his neck, but God strengthened Yaakov's neck, and the neck became stronger than teeth, and Esav's teeth broke, and he was crying because it hurt so much. And those little dots are a hint to Esav's teeth falling out. And they wept. Yaakov was crying because Esav didn't kill him, and Esav was crying because his teeth were hurting. Either one of these explanations is valid. But let's take the explanation that Esav was overcome with love because of Yaakov's humility and Yaakov's gifts. Now we will go to page 179. Esav saw the women and children. He asked, who are these? And Yaakov humbly said, the children whom God had graciously given your servant. And every mother came forth with her children, and they bowed down to Esav. And Rachel and Yosef came last, and Yosef stood in front of Rachel, and he bowed down together with Rachel. Yosef protected his mother, even though he was the youngest, but he was the boldest. And out of politeness, Esav said, I have plenty, my brother. Let what you have remain yours. Take back your gifts. And Yaakov said, no, I beg you. If I have found favor in your eyes, accept my tribute from me, because I saw your face, and for me it means a lot, as if I saw God himself. And plus, I have everything. Yaakov has this character trait of being satisfied with his lot, and he says, I have everything, therefore I'm not lacking anything, please take. And Esav accepted. Esav offered Yaakov to travel together in verse 12. Let us go, I will proceed alongside you. But Yaakov didn't accept his offer. He said, now Esav is in a good mood, who knows what's going to happen tomorrow. So he said, Esav, I have children, I have animals, I'm going to walk slowly, please don't wait, go, I'll catch up with you sometime later. And our sages say, yes, Yaakov will catch up with him at the end of times, by the war of Gog and Magog. So they parted. Verse 16, Esav went back that day on his way towards Seir, but Yaakov journeyed to Sukkot, and he built himself a house, and for his livestock he made shelters, and he therefore called the name of the place Sukkot. We're now on page 181. Since the word shelter in Hebrew is Sukkot, and he built these huts for his animals, that place acquired name Sukkot. From here we see that Yaakov cared even for animals. Not only he built a house for himself, he even built shelters for his animals. So Yaakov spends 2 years during his travels towards his father, and when Yaakov is 99 years old, verse 18, Yaakov arrived intact at the city of Shechem. Verse 19, he bought the parcel of land upon which he pitched his tent from the children of Hamor for 100 kesita, for 100 coins of local currency. He set up an altar there and proclaimed God, the God of Israel. And just like Abraham bought Ma'arat HaMachpelah in Hebron, Yaakov bought a field next to Shechem. And just like Hebron became disputed, and the Muslims are claiming that it's theirs, even though the Torah clearly says that Abraham bought it, so too the city of Shechem is disputed. And later in that field Yosef was buried, and now his burial plot is in the hands of Muslims, and they are not letting us go there. And not only that, they destroyed the grave site of Yosef. And the Torah specifically says that Yaakov paid a lot of money for that field, and still our enemies don't respect our title on the land. Now we go to chapter 34, page 181. A sad story of Dinah's abduction. Dinah is 8 years old, the daughter of Leah. Went out together with daughters of the land. She became friendly with the local girls, and she went where she wasn't supposed to. She was supposed to stay in the Jewish camp next to her mother, next to her brothers, and she went out. So Shechem, the son of Hamor, the prince of the region, saw her. He took her by force, lay with her, and violated her. And surprisingly, he became deeply attached to Dinah. Usually, criminals get satisfaction and they drop their victim. They might kill their victim or just run away. But Shechem never saw such a thing. A Jewish girl? He desired her. He became attached to her. He loved the maiden and appealed to the maiden's emotions. And he spoke to his father saying, "Take me this girl for a wife." I'm never going to find a girl like that among the local girls. This girl is a gem. I want her as my wife. Wherever Jewish people would go, their girls were always hunted after. They were always considered the best wives. But the Torah tells us the Jewish boys are the best husbands, the Jewish girls are the best wives, and therefore keep the wealth in the family, not allowed to marry out of the nation. Now, Yaakov heard that his daughter was defiled, and his sons were in the field in the meantime. So Yaakov had to keep quiet until their arrival. And Hamor, Shechem's father, came to Yaakov to speak for shidduch. And at that time Yaakov's sons arrived from the field, and when they heard, they were distressed, and the fire of indignation burned inside of them. Now we turn to page 183. Hamor and Shechem spoke to them and said that my son longs deeply for your daughter. Please give her to him as a wife. They thought it's going to be a done deal. Of course, the prince wants to marry some traveling tribe's daughter. Of course, they'll be honored. You will intermarry with us. You can give your daughters to us and take our daughters for yourself, and you can trade and you'll be prosperous. And Shechem himself said, let me gain favor in your eyes. Whatever you tell me, I will give. You can inflate exceedingly upon me the marriage settlement and gifts, and I will give whatever you tell me. Just give me this girl as a wife. Something took over him, and he couldn't control himself. He wants to marry only Dinah for any price. However, Yaakov's sons answered Shechem cleverly, because they said, what is this? Not only he kidnapped our sister, not only he violated her, but he's not letting her go. He's keeping her in his house. So they said, we have to get her out of there. So they decided to trick Shechem. And they said, we can only, this is verse 15, only on this condition will we acquiesce to you, if you become like us, by letting every male among you become circumcised. Verse 18, Hamor agrees. Their proposal seemed good in the view of Hamor and the people of the town, and they all became circumcised, which is an amazing thing. Why would they do it? Adults, elders, children go through an operation just because their leader desired to marry some woman, and now all males have to circumcise. Very strange thing. And yet they all said, yes, we're going to do it. And as one, they all circumcised themselves. Now we go to page 185. Verse 24. All the people who depart through the gate of his city listen to Hamor and his son Shechem, and all the males, all those who depart through the gate of the city, were circumcised. Now, it came to pass on the third day, when they were in pain, because the third day is the hardest day after circumcision, the two sons of Yaakov, Shimon and Levi, Dinah's brothers, they come from the same mother, from Leah, each took his sword, and they came upon the city confidently, killing every male. Now, how old were Shimon and Levi? Shimon was 13 years old, and Levi was somewhere between 12 and 13 years old. They were both young teenagers, two young teenagers, 12 and 13 years old, and they killed out the entire city. And they killed Hamor and Shechem as well. And then they took Dinah from Shechem's house and left. Now verse 30. Yaakov said to Shimon and Levi, you caused me to look bad among the inhabitants of the land. I'm few in number. Should they band together and attack me, I will be annihilated. So he rebuked them. But they answered, should he treat our sister like a harlot? Now we turn to page 187, chapter 35. Yaakov travels to Beit El, but in order to serve God, but before that he prepares. Hashem said to Yaakov, arise, go up to Beit El and dwell there, and make an altar for me who appeared to you when you fled from Esav your brother. Which means, just like Yaakov promised on his way to Lavan that if he comes back safely, he will serve God on the altar in Beit El. So now Hashem reminds him, you already came, 2 years past, you're traveling, go and fulfill your vow. So Yaakov said to his household, let's prepare, discard the alien gods that are in your midst, cleanse yourself and change your clothing. So they gave Yaakov all the idols. The servants may have had it, and Rachel had idols of her father, and they just took possession of all the things from Shechem, among which there were for sure idolatrous objects. And Yaakov buried them under a tree near Shechem. And as they traveled to Beit El, Hashem placed terror on all the cities which were around them, so they didn't pursue Yaakov's sons. Yaakov came to Luz, which has another name, Beit El, and he built an altar there. Now verse 8. Devorah, the wet nurse of Rivka, died, and she was buried under Beit El. And our sages say that at that same time Rivka herself died. Rivka was 122 years old, and she died secretly because, not that she died secretly, she was buried secretly because at that time everyone knew what kind of person Esau was, and he caused bad reputation on the whole family. So when they were burying her, they didn't want to announce it, so the people shouldn't speak extra about their bad son. Now we go to page 189. God appeared to Yaakov again, and he blessed him. And he said, verse 10, your name is Yaakov. Your name shall not always be called Yaakov, but Yisrael shall be your permanent name. So he called his name Yisrael. And God said to him, I am El Shaddai. Be fruitful and multiply. A nation, which refers to Binyamin, and a congregation of nations shall descend from you, which refers to the two tribes that came from Yosef, Menashe and Ephraim. Kings shall come out from you. And that refers, of course, to the kings of the tribe of Binyamin, which is Shaul, and the kings that came from Yehudah and other tribes. The land that I gave to Abraham, to Yitzhak, I will give to you and to your offspring. Verse 14, Yaakov had set up a pillar at the place where God had spoken to him, a pillar of stone, and he poured a libation upon it, and he poured oil upon it. This is the fulfillment of Yaakov's promise many years earlier. They journeyed, verse 16, from Beit El, and there was still a stretch of land to go to Ephrat, when Rachel went into labor and had difficulty in her childbirth. She was about to die, and her midwife tried to reassure her, "Have no fear, for this one too is a son for you." And as the baby was born, Rachel was losing it. She was departing. As her soul was departing, she called his name Ben-Oni, which means the son of my sorrow. But his father called him Binyamin, the son of my right hand, the son of strength. Rachel died, and she was buried on the road to Ephrat, which is Beit Lechem. And Yaakov set up a monument over her grave. It is the monument of Rachel's grave until today in the city of Beit Lechem. Verse 21 on page 191. Yisrael journeyed on, and he pitched his tent beyond Migdal Eder. While Yisrael dwelt in that land, Reuven went and lay with Bilhah, his father's concubine. Now, our sages say that all Reuven did was he moved his father's bed into his mother's tent, Leah, while Yaakov wanted to spend the night with Bilhah, who was maidservant of Rachel, because she reminded him of Rachel, and he still mourned for her. And because Reuven interfered in his father's marital life, it is considered as if he violated his wife. Sons of Yaakov were 12, and now the Torah lists all of them. Now there's a complete set. Yaakov's firstborn, Reuven, then comes Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, Issachar, Zevulun, and then Yosef and Binyamin, and then Dan and Naphtali, and Gad and Asher. Verse 27. Finally, Yaakov and Yitzchak reunite. Yaakov came to Yitzchak his father at Mamre Kiryat Arba, which is Hebron. And Yitzchak's days were 180 years, and Yitzchak expired and died, and he was gathered to his people, old and fulfilled of days. His sons, Yaakov and Esav, buried him. Now our sages say that it didn't happen right away when Yaakov came. It happened 21 years later. But the Torah tells us about it now, because we are going to concentrate on Yaakov and his sons, and Yitzchak will not play a role anymore. Now we turn to page 193, and we have genealogy of Esav and Seir. These are descendants of Esav, his Edom. He had wives, Adah, Ahalivamah, and Basmat. And all the sons that were born to him are listed. Now Esav took his, we're in verse 6, Esav took his wives and sons and daughters and all the members of the household and went to a land, an unknown land, which later we'll know it's called Seir, because of his brother Yaakov. Esav said, the land of Israel comes with responsibility. Hashem said, whoever continues the legacy of Abraham and Yitzchak will have to be slaves in the land not their own for 400 years. And Esav said, I don't need the land because I don't want the price tag. So he went to a different land. Verse 8, so Esav settled on Mount Seir. Verse 12, Timnah was a concubine of Eliphaz, son of Esav, and she bore Amalek to Eliphaz. So here we learn the genealogy of Amalek. Amalek was not a son of a wife, but rather he was a son of a concubine. Esav had a son Eliphaz. Eliphaz had a concubine Timnah, and Amalek came from her. Really, we learn through the genealogy that they were not loyal to their wives, and there was a double adultery. So Amalek is really a product of